There exists a type of creature in this world, discovered by a select few, yet never officially confirmed to exist. We collectively refer to them as unidentified mysterious animals, or UMA for short. Hello everyone, and welcome to the World in 10 Minutes video series. West Virginia, USA has never lacked in monster legends. But not every story gets the attention of famous cases like the Mothman or the Flatwoods Monster. In this episode, I want to share with you another humanoid mystery creature that appeared in West Virginia in the mid-20th century, the Grafton Monster. If you've played Fallout 76, you probably remember this creature vividly, a headless, heavily muscular beast. That in-game monster was directly inspired by today's subject, the Grafton Monster. Here's what happened. On the night of June 16, 1964, around 11 p.m., Robert Roach Cockrell, a reporter for the Grafton Sentinel, was driving home along Tygart River Avenue at about 50 miles per hour. He took this road daily and knew it well. At first, everything seemed normal, but as he rounded a large curve, he instinctively looked ahead. The road straightened out for about a mile. In the beam of his headlights, on a neatly maintained patch of grass between the road and the riverbank, he suddenly saw something. A massive, white object blocking the way. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. He caught a quick glimpse of the creature, panicked, and sped away, wanting nothing more than to get out of there fast. He later described it as standing 7 to 9 feet tall, about 4 feet wide, covered in skin like a seal, with a thin film or membrane over it. It had no visible head, and when his car passed by, the creature remained perfectly still, upright, and motionless. That, he said, was the most accurate description he could give, as the terrifying sight had left him deeply shaken. Though he felt like locking his door and hiding, his duty as a journalist came first, so he turned around and returned to town, gathering 2 friends, Jerry Morse and Jim Moser, to help him look for the creature. But when they went back to the same road, it was gone. There was no trace of it. The only clue was that the bushes by the riverbank appeared flattened, as if something enormous had passed through. They searched for over an hour. Though they never saw the creature again, they could hear a deep, low growl from the riverside, a sound that seemed to follow them as they moved. Eventually, with no further signs, they ended the search. Cockrell later insisted it was not a prank, not a hallucination. The night was clear. He wasn't tired or stressed. He truly saw something unexplainable. The next day, June 17, 1964, Cockrell returned to work. He decided to share his encounter from the previous night with the newspaper editor. Soon, the story was published as a news report. On June 18th, the third day, a follow-up article appeared in the Grafton Sentinel under the headline, "Teenagers Hunt for Monster." Now the latest buzz in Grafton. Here's a summary of the report. On Wednesday night, June 17th, several groups of teenagers armed with flashlights, hammers, and crowbars searched the area along Riverside Drive, hoping to find the creature. Descriptions of the Grafton Monster closely resembled those from recent reports of a mysterious beast in Michigan, except the Grafton creature appeared to be more muscular. These teenagers were looking for a 9-foot-tall, 4-foot-wide being, a white, headless creature said to emit a strange, howling noise. At that point, local law enforcement hadn't taken any official action. Some teens claimed they had seen the creature and gave remarkably detailed descriptions. As the story spread, details began to take on new twists. Some claimed the monster was first seen in the Morgantown area and had made its way to Grafton by following the Monongahela and Tigard rivers. One youth speculated that it might have been an escaped polar bear, though no one could say where it might have gone. The Michigan monster mentioned refers to a separate creature sighted around the same time in that state, a tall, ape-like being covered in black fur known as the Dewey Lake Monster. The Grafton Sentinel had even reprinted a report on that case just a week earlier, on June 11th. However, despite some similarities, the descriptions of the two creatures weren't exactly the same. On June 19th, the Sentinel published a second article about the monster hunt. The headline read, "Monster Born from Spring Fever and Overactive Imaginations." It downplayed the situation, suggesting that the so-called Grafton monster was simply the product of excited teenagers' imagination. On Thursday night, June 18th, so many people were wandering around Peace Avenue that the article joked, even if a real monster did exist, it wouldn't dare show itself. At around 10 p.m. that night, Riverside Drive was lined with cars. Traffic was stopped so people could take part in what had become Grafton's hottest new hobby, monster hunting. Since Tuesday night, the first reported sighting, about 20 people claimed to have seen the creature. On Wednesday, roughly 30 teens joined the search. And by Thursday night, the number had doubled, with some adults joining in too. The article suggested that the frenzy was sparked by a mix of spring fever, a lack of other entertainment in town, and the recent reports from Michigan about monsters stalking humans. The Sentinel's own follow-up investigation offered a more mundane explanation. On Tuesday night, a man was reportedly seen pushing a cart full of boxes along Riverside Drive. They speculated that this might have been misidentified as the monster. Based on these two articles, it's clear the media didn't believe a monster truly existed. They saw Cockrell's report as part of the general monster hysteria at the time, possibly fueled by visual misperception. But Cockrell himself remained convinced of what he had seen. On July 10th, he wrote a detailed letter to American paranormal author Gray Barker, documenting the entire encounter. The detailed account we have today comes directly from that letter. In it, Cockrell acknowledged the media's skepticism. He understood that some people might mistake boxes for a monster, but what he saw was nothing like that. He also followed up with several individuals who had claimed sightings. While the times and locations of their encounters varied, some reports were consistent.
Like most UMA, or unidentified mysterious animal cases, the Grafton monster quickly rose to fame, only to fade from the spotlight just as fast. With no solid evidence and no confirmed sightings, interest in the headless creature vanished as quickly as it had come. The case was left unresolved. It wasn't until the 21st century that the Grafton monster gained widespread attention again. In 2014, a US reality TV show called Mountain Monsters, centered around cryptozoology, aired its second season on the Destination America channel. One episode featured an entire investigation dedicated to the Grafton monster. In the episode, the team claimed to have received strange footage that might have captured the creature. The clip came from a Grafton farmer named Wolfie. While filming his cattle for a buyer, he inadvertently recorded something unusual. In the background, a large, shadowy figure can be seen moving quickly on two legs through the woods. Wolfie said his cattle were spooked as the thing passed, and he could hear branches being trampled as it moved rapidly. He believed this incident confirmed the long-standing Grafton monster legend. Another man, a hunter named Dale, shared a trail camera image from his usual hunting area. Although the photo was incomplete, A strange-shaped figure could be seen in the lower right corner. That night, the show's crew followed Wolfie's directions and investigated the woods using infrared thermal imaging. They captured heat signatures and also found the mangled remains of a calf. They decided to set up a trap baited with food in hopes of catching the creature, but ultimately they failed. While tracking, the team claimed they occasionally heard deep growls, believed to be the monster's voice. However, it never appeared on camera. At the time of the original incident in 1964, the media offered more grounded explanations, such as youthful imagination or a visual misinterpretation of a man pushing a cart. Those were plausible, but the polar bear theory was far less convincing. There were no records of escaped polar bears from local zoos or circuses. After Cockrell reported the incident to Gray Barker, a well-known paranormal author, Barker offered a radical theory. The creature might be an organic extraterrestrial probe sent to study Earth's environment, similar to how humans launched dogs and monkeys into space during the early days of exploration. The low howling sound reported by witnesses? Barker speculated it could have come from a spaceship retrieving the creature. It was a bold and futuristic theory, one that offered a seemingly logical direction for those interested in the unknown. Even the Mountain Monsters show echoed these ideas. Some believed the creature had escaped through a wormhole or had been picked up by extraterrestrial beings. Others insisted it was still lurking around Grafton. But there was a problem. Gray Barker's reputation was controversial. Some even called him a complete fraud. One of his former friends, American journalist and writer John Sherwood, harshly criticized him in 2 books. Gray Barker, My Friend the Mythmaker, 1998, and Gray Barker's Book of Bunk, 2002. Sherwood accused Barker of being self-serving, deceptive, and responsible for staging or promoting hoaxes. He claimed Barker manipulated people's beliefs for amusement or profit. Another associate, James W. Mosley, said Barker treated most of ufology as a joke. That said, I won't personally take a stance, since most of these accusations only surfaced after Barker's death. Aside from that, mountain monsters also became infamous within the cryptozoology community. Some viewers disliked how the show portrayed West Virginians, leaning into rural and Appalachian stereotypes. But the bigger issue was fabrication. According to a local Grafton blogger, the actors on the show butchered the script, making the whole production seem ridiculous. Their exaggerated hunting scenes turned both the story and the town into a joke. Worse, the show's crew never even filmed in Grafton. The so-called local eyewitnesses featured in the episode, no one in town had ever seen them. By 2014, 50 years had passed since the original sighting. Most Grafton residents had no memory of the event. Many younger locals grew up completely unaware of the incident. Back in 1964, school had already closed for summer break, and by September, when classes resumed, any panic had long since faded. There was no social media back then to keep the mystery alive in public memory. So, unless someone had grown up in Grafton or read the newspaper in their youth, they likely never heard of the Grafton monster. On this point, I personally agree. To me, mountain monsters always felt over the top. Every character fits a certain dramatic mold, and in every single episode, somehow they managed to discover new evidence of cryptids, like clockwork. So while the series had aired for 8 seasons by 2022, its credibility was highly questionable. Of course, most viewers just watch it for entertainment. The cheap CGI effects hardly seem out of place in a show that never claimed scientific integrity. However, the show still managed to frustrate Robert Cockrell, the original eyewitness, whose real, terrifying experience was reduced to a spectacle. And with that, the story of the Grafton Monster remains an unsolved mystery.
On April 23, 2014, a new generation of the Sentinel, now called the Mountain Statesman, published a letter written by Robert Cockrell himself. In the letter, Cockrell praised the Grafton Monster tale for being an entertaining story, one that inspired people to run through the streets on warm summer nights chasing shadows. But he also admitted, the monster never actually existed. He revealed that on the night of the sighting, a local man named Tommy Peters, well known in town for constantly riding his bike around, was traveling along Riverside Drive in the dark. Piled high on the back of his bike were boxes, and that, Cockrell claimed, was the real identity of the monster. According to him, the original intention of the Sentinel editor was not to publish a sensational fictional monster story, but to report on how local people reacted to what turned out to be an illusion, essentially what the second Sentinel article back in 1964 had tried to do. Looking back, Cockrell noted that article mostly focused on the dangers of large crowds gathering in the Riverside area at night. He also criticized later retellings, mentioning American author Rosemary Ellen Guiley's 2012 book, Monsters of West Virginia, which featured the Grafton Monster. Cockrell stated that much of her account was fictionalized, and that the story of a young reporter discovering the creature was also fabricated. As for mountain monsters, Cockrell dismissed it as downright terrible. He ended his letter with a firm conclusion: the monster never existed. And he should know, he was the very young reporter whose original article sparked the entire phenomenon over 50 years ago. At this point, the story is clear. It was, in essence, a media-driven hoax. That said, it undeniably sparked the imagination of many, creating a story that became part of West Virginia's folklore. The Grafton Monster, like the Mothman, inspired festivals, fan culture, and even appearances in games like Fallout 76 and shows like Mountain Monsters. From a different perspective, the Grafton Monster has become part of the region's cultural heritage. But Cockrell believed the real mistake was the newspaper's role in misleading the public. As a trusted local media outlet, using such tactics to draw attention without considering the consequences was irresponsible. Back in the 1960s, if crowds of people had continued flooding the area, many of them carrying blunt weapons or even firearms, driven by fear and tension, the outcome could have been dangerous, even deadly. So in the end, the Grafton Monster story was filled with drama and curiosity, but it also serves as a cautionary tale: how information can become distorted, how imagination and fear can take hold, and why it's important to stay grounded in critical thinking when facing the unknown. Don't let yourself be driven by fear or desire. And as always, the unknown is always greater than the known, and that's the true magic of Yuma. Thanks for watching.